Sorry. Is that sooner or later, like I said on my last video, is that I'm gonna move to a new apartment and seeing things here is giving me a little bit of the usual moving blues. But like I said, also that doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop watching movies. This is technically kind of a little bit of my passionate hobby. But also, I am glad that while might be moving to a new apartment, I'm still glad that I didn't move to Derry, Maine. From what I said, you can tell that I just came back from watching the second chapter of the movie adaptation of Stephen King's It. Well, I did saw the first chapter only once. But I do remember that I only wrote to the review on Facebook for my peers. And right now that I decided to share to a little bit of a broader audience in YouTube. Small, but still, I'm glad because it's kind of like a hobby. I think I gotta tell you what do I think about Stephen King's It. Well, here's the thing. I never read the book. I never read it. I just saw cliff notes out of it. But it's the typical thing you kind of do when you go to Wikipedia just to kill off some time and you don't want to bother to read the whole book because I heard the book is gigantic. But I did saw the infamous TV miniseries years ago. It's been a while, and I do remember that that I was kind of interested, but at the same time, there are some parts that bore me a lot. Mostly, I think that the biggest enjoyment I had from watching that TV miniseries is none other than Tim Curry playing the villain, the clown Pennywise. And now we got this movie adaptation of It. The first chapter that came out, I think it was 2 years ago. I never had a problem. I was a little bit skeptical on what was the name of that actor again? Bill Skarsgård's taking the role of Pennywise, mostly because I was a little bit clingy, and I thought that nobody in this world will ever gonna top the really quirky, wonderful performances of Tim Curry. But let's face it, no one else will do. There's only one Tim Curry. Of course that he's retired, but what can you do? But I thought that I enjoyed chapter 1 despite anything. I didn't, unlike many people, I didn't think that it was, I kind of go in high remarks saying that it's wonderful and everything. I thought it was good. I thought some moments where it kind of made me roll my eyes. But I do have to admit that it broke out some expectations of what I thought that the movie was gonna fail, but it just came kind of like a slap on my face saying that no, the movie wasn't bad. Actually, I just came out liking it. But I only saw it just once, but I didn't think that I needed to. But I do remember that after I finished the first chapter, my biggest question is what they're gonna do with chapter 2. Because both in the book and the TV miniseries, the second chapter is where most of the faults of the story happens. Many people even probably could say that the second chapter is the weakest part of the whole It story. And I was really eager to see how they're gonna do it, how they're gonna expand, and how they're gonna try to top off probably the most uninteresting part of the of the movie? Well, I just came back, and I'll tell you right now that I am one of the few people who actually came out and joined this film. I like it, of course. I think that there's some things that they do better than the TV miniseries. Although there are also some things that it harms compared to the TV miniseries. But take it a little bit as a personal opinion. And I'm gonna talk about it right now. So I gotta warn you that if you're curious enough to watch this film and complete the 2 chapters of it, go ahead, go watch it. But I warn you, one of the biggest problems that this movie has is that it is 3 hours long. Although I didn't have much of a problem because I was hooked into the movie that I kind of didn't mind. That's the thing about movies that are long. It's intimidating, but if you are entertained enough or hooked enough to the story, maybe you wouldn't mind. I know it's tiring sometimes, but you can. But this is my only warning that I can give you for this film. So, so did you watch it, or you don't care for me talking about a little bit of spoilers? So here goes. To give you a brief summary of the It novel slash TV miniseries and this movie. The movie takes place in this town named Derry, and it centers on this group of ragtag misfit children that they are joined together because they all suffer terrible family lives. They're kind of like the townsfolk kind of hates them. They're all a target of this very sadistic bully. So basically, Derry is technically a big hell, but instead of going to hell when you die, it's a living hell. But of course, the biggest threat that the town has is this entity that takes shape on anything that you fear. It doesn't technically has a name. It's called It, but his main transformation is about this clown that is named Pennywise. And this clown, technically, what it does is that it lures its victims, most notably children. So whenever they're close, he just eats them and dismember them in horrible ways. So we follow these group. The first chapter concentrates on this group of children confronting this evil. Until, of course, they defeat him, but apparently he kind of escapes. So at the end of the first chapter, they made a blood oath saying that if this creature comes back, they're gonna return and they're gonna end it all. Well, that's where chapter 2 comes, and chapter 2 takes place 27 years later, in which Pennywise returns. He begins his murder spree again, and the only resident who stay on Derry, which is the lack of better words, the black kid named Mike. He calls down all the remaining losers, which that's the name of what they are called, the losers, so they can go back to Derry and confront and defeat this entity once and for all. I gotta say that, first of all, the acting is amazing, both as the kid actors or also the adults, and they did a nice job in the makeup to make the children and the adults have a good contrast on their age, their face, and their personalities. Even though I know I've been hearing that the scenes when they're children, they have to digitally de-ageify them. I didn't have much of a problem. I've seen worse scenarios that they do that. But again, what I like is that it does maintain the personality and the characteristics and the likability of the characters. Mainly, it can help with not only the performance of the actors, but also the quality of the writing. Which I'll get to the writing later, because I'll say, okay, I'll say that it's a little bit solid. I'll say, again, the actors do well done, but most notably, I'll say that probably the best actor in this movie is none other than Bill Hader as the, I think it was the glasses kid. The glasses kid. What was the name? Richie. Yeah, the name Richie, who was the glasses kid. And boy, yeah, he was the best part in the last movie, and it's incredibly so. He was also kind of like the best actor in this movie. The others do well. I kind of struggle on remembering the names. There's Jessica Chastain, who plays Beverly. She does a good job, I'll say. The main kid, James McAvoy, who plays the stuttering kid named Bill. He technically kind of is like the main character, and he does a good job. I'm not gonna say anything special to say because everyone did a good job. Well, there's Isaiah Mustafa, who he's Mike, the Afro American kid. What else? There's Jay Ryan, who plays Ben, who is the overweight kid. But then when he grew up, he becomes more athletic and more handsome. Something that can remind me that is technically the ugly duckling tale. There's also James Ransom, who plays Eddie, the hypochondriac mama's boy kid, who I kind of smirk because it is noticeable that even in the novel it says that after he gets out of town, he marries a woman that is technically as overbearing as his mother. And also there is Andy Beam playing Stanley, which, if I give you a little bit of a spoiler, let's say that he is the one who gets away because he kills himself in all the incarnations. So you don't get much of him, I'm kind of glad that there's some moment that he still feels that there is some kind of presence on his storyline. That's the least I could say. As for Bill Skarsgård as the infamous Pennywise the Clown, like I said, he's no Tim Curry. But you know what? For some reason, I think I enjoy him in this movie better than I did in the last movie. Maybe it's because this dancing scene that he had in the last movie was a little bit too silly. But in this one, he does act like even more creepier, or a Stephen King version of Freddy Krueger. And the moments that he's there, I actually enjoy. And honestly, I personally think that he does a better job in this movie compared to the last one. So I'll give it that at least. And well, the other actors are okay. We also have the bully also, who he does a great job. What was the name of the movie? You know what? I'm not gonna bother. The bully. The bully. He is probably one of the most psychotic psychopaths you could ever see in this. In these kind of stories. But boy, that doesn't kind of hold a candle, because once you see, the townsfolk of Derry and the treatment of, our main cast, you kind of begin to agree that this town sucks. Probably the monster is probably less monstrous compared to the people in there. But that's just me, I'll say. And now I'm gonna talk about the technical aspects, which this is probably what I noticed that people are not too keen into. I do have to agree that the pacing can be a little bit dragging. Again, it's a 3-hour movie. and some moments they do feel that they drag in some ways, but as long as you kind of feel that you're interested in the movie and you just say, let's just watch the movie, maybe you will say that, oh yeah, I have a good time. But it's mostly during in the third act where you notice that something's felt that is stretched on and on and on. But unfortunately, also you notice that there are some moments that it feels that they kind of lack a little bit of continuity, and it shows. I heard an interview saying that the director had actually another hour of material that it didn't make it into the movie. That's saying a lot. For me, the biggest example is that we got two characters in the library and four characters. I think it was a hotel or something like that, or a house. And we get the scene of the two guys in the library. And after the scene ends, we transition to the with the other four characters. And then the other two characters suddenly they appear, almost like they appear like if they kind of get a Jetsons car and they got there in 10 seconds flat. So I'm questioning, okay, what happened? Did I miss something? Another problem that the pacing has, it also deals a little bit in the narrative. Because this one, I don't technically blame the movie. I would say because the novel also has a little bit of that problem, in which, in this, one of the weaknesses that this movie has is that it kind of doesn't technically say how to deliberately kill the monster. Sorry, I just got a smartphone. It does, and the way to kill a monster that can turn into almost anything. Some of the rules feel that they just invented on the go. In this case, it kind of invokes a ritual. They also kind of begins to say that, well, the monster is basically an alien that came out from outer space and crash land on Earth, and it's feeding. It kind of reminds you of Lobos from Chrono Trigger. But it doesn't technically explain why it has these kind of powers. Also, well, it's a little bit vague to say... it's a little bit vague in the explanation of why this creature, it prefers to take the form of a clown. And this kind of makes the resolution almost at the end of the movie feels a little bit cheap and campy. But at least I take it. I'll say that I could take it. But at least because I was more into the movie, I just wanted it to, see how it ends up. Mostly because I feel worried about the characters legitimately. And I'll tell you that this is also one of the strongest points of the movie, that it makes you legitimately care of the characters. Speaking of emotions, how this movie is scary compared to other movies and the previous film. Well, let me put it this way. I don't remember exactly the last movie. I haven't seen it for a long time, so it's a little bit vague for me. But if I have to say it, at least in kind of like someone who just got too hooked into the movie, I'll could definitely say that I think that a lot of modern horror movies, they should take note on some of the good aspects that this movie has in terms of horror. First off, there's no cheap jump scare. Second, the armor for children is not there, because usually most horror movies, they have to, they try to not kill off, in probably the weakest links, mostly because, let's say that horror movies technically try to avoid death of children because they're the most vulnerable, and when you do that, you look that you're a really mean-spirited thing. But unfortunately, if you think about it in real life, death can come to anywhere. I know that I complain a lot about many horror movies that they kill off the dog or the cat or the bird first, but I complain it because it's been overused a lot. This kind of trope. Uh, but in this one, it does show that no one is safe from it. It can be killed by if you're a child or you're an adult. Although it mostly definitely target children. And you might be thinking, okay, why doesn't the monster attack just children? Well, I recently saw again the cliff notes on Wikipedia, and yeah, and an adult gets killed at the beginning of the second chapter of it in the book. That's my only excuse that I can give it. And also the scares doesn't rely on jump scares, even though it does rely a little bit on digital visual media, because I gotta admit, some of the scares they really catch me off guard, mostly on the design of some of the most horrific monsters you could see in this film. I know that it looks CGI, and they exaggerate. They have a little bit more budget compared to the last one, so practical effects are a little bit more minimal compared to the last one. But my God, the monsters! Holy man! That includes Pennywise, just in case. The transformation of Pennywise. Remember the old lady from the trailer? Man, oh man, that put me kind of like a. I gotta say, I think that the movie of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark should have taken note on this one. I mean, because they have great monster designs. It's only that the execution of the scares and the story, it chapter 2 does better than scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Yep, it is Scary Stories. We're finally saying it instead of Scary Tales. But again, that's just this is technically my own personal opinion that some of the scares were better compared to what I think from chapter 1. There's also one element that kind of rubbed me in the wrong way. Here's the thing that they chop out on the story department. The thing is that one of the biggest eyebrow raisers that I had with the first chapter is that they wanted to force out a romantic triangle between the character of Beverly, Ben, and Bill. That thing it wasn't in the in the original TV miniseries or in the what was it in the novel. Although there is a very, very sketchy, uncomfortable thing that happens at the end of the first chapter, but I'm not gonna say it here just in case. But the thing that they chop out, but the reason that they did that because I think it was unnecessary, because one of the key elements that the second chapter has, at least in the novel and the TV miniseries, is that Bill has a wife. Although in this movie he shows that he's married, but that wife, she's just there and she's never seen again. But unfortunately, that wife takes an important role in the second chapter of the novel / TV miniseries. As a damsel in distress, of course, but at least she was there. So they decided to chop this thing out, which it wouldn't have been a bad thing, but that kind of makes one important element. Let's say it kind of turns into a red herring. Because the character Bill, one of his most important cherished childhood items is his bicycle, in which he calls it Silver. Um, and it is implied that this is kind of like a memory of his I think that it's kind of like a memory of some of his best moments of his childhood when he doesn't have, his problems. But the thing is that it wouldn't have been bad if it wasn't, put us into our faces in this movie. Because in this movie he finds his bike in an antique shop, and he buys it from our cameo Stephen King himself. And it felt like he's gonna have something important, but no. Then this bicycle is long gone. We never talk about that bicycle again. So what was the point of that scene? Just only to make a cameo of Stephen King? Because at least that bicycle was used in the final moments of the TV miniseries slash the novel. That's one of the few concerns that this movie has. But again, that's just me, and I'm just trying to analyze it without a script about this movie. But either way, I think that you're not gonna feel disappointed about this movie. You're gonna like it better. You're gonna like the first movie better. This one, you notice the problems, but I felt that it was less boring compared to the TV miniseries. And I'm not gonna lie that I did drop tears in the final moments of this movie. Because they did a better execution on, making us care for these characters. These children who they have a terrible path of life when in their childhood, and their only solace is between themselves, and ironically defeating a bigger threat that is technically an alien from outer space. And when they get separated, you see that their lives it's still kind of terrible, only to return to face their own demons and try to find kind of like a better future for that. But that's technically my presumptuous opinion out of it. So it's obvious that once you see the first chapter, you're definitely gonna want to watch chapter 2. So I can't say that I recommend it hard enough, but still, if you want to watch this film, watch the first chapter first, and then watch the second chapter, or else you're gonna get lost. I think that is my wholesome opinion of this movie. I think that I'm gonna close it up there. The only thing that this movie lacks is to notice that everybody, they're all floating.